The war with the Saviors has been fought long and hard, with victories and losses on both sides. But it all comes down to this, the literal last stand. That's right, it is the end of the war with the Saviors. On this week's The Walking Dead, Season 8, Episode 16, Wrath. Hey everyone, D here, and welcome to this week's review, our final review of the season of The Walking Dead. So yes, spoilers, yada yada yada. Alright, so I actually found this to be a rather satisfying ending for this season. There's a lot about this season that I've enjoyed. Some of it I thought kind of dragged, got a little ridiculous, but I thought for the most part, this episode really wrapped things up nicely. They gave some great move and counter move between Rick and Negan, a wonderfully tense battle moment with a brilliant twist, and then the rest of it is kind of all wrap up. It was interesting. It was kind of like, I don't know, 20 minutes of setup and then like 10-15 minutes of battle, and then everything else was just sort of wrapping up the whole rest of the season. So let's actually dive in with the back and forth with Negan and Rick. And I think setting up the tension, the final battle of this episode, I thought they did that really well. Again, whenever we have a bad guy who is intelligent, that makes smart moves, it makes them more threatening, it makes them more intriguing. And Negan is, if nothing else, intriguing. But the fact that this was all set up not just as a trap, but kind of like a trap within a trap. We've got the fake map that Gregory handed off to Rick and everyone by Negan's design that had what was supposed to be the plan. Gather all up, do that here. But Negan expects Rick to suspect a trap, to have scouts out. So he sets up sacrificial lambs. Hate to sacrifice people, but sometimes it has to happen. So that Rick believes that he is outsmarting Negan. And finds another fake map that shows what the real plan was going to be, that actually further convinces Rick and company that this fake plan is the real plan. I mean, it's depths within depths. And counting on the fact that Rick and everyone is going to kill all of the Saviors, that there's not going to be any questioning. That leaves that little evidence, that map that Negan handed to Blue Hair there, just sort of perfect. I love that whole setup. It really makes Negan, again, a threat. And so when we get to the moment, when we get to the big build-up and confrontation there, we have bought it. We really fall into that again, the trap that Rick falls into, that he is completely caught. Not to mention, at the same time that they know they've pulled Rick and the rest of the fighters out, Negan has sent a whole nother group down to Hilltop to try and finish them off. So, really, from a plan standpoint, Negan was brilliant. He expected Rick's suspicions, counted on them, in fact, and the fact that they've gone too far, that they're willing to kill everyone. That really suckers him into the plan. So I love that whole setup. And then, of course, that gets to our big confrontation, which you had no doubt, did you, is our Scene of the Week for the last of this season, because it was so beautifully set up. Again, we have Rick coming up thinking that they're going to get the drop on Negan, and then, damn, whistling. Oh, man, every time I hear that now, it's going to raise the hackles and the hairs on the back of the neck. But we have there, and Negan starts off in the full, just arrogant statement. I've got you in your trap. This is not the way it was going to be. You had to fight. Really works the tension there. And then we can see from Rick's position, he's downhill from where the sound's coming from. That's not a good place. Woods behind him, nowhere to go. Negan's already said you're completely surrounded. So they built the tension up on this. And what really sold it, what really got to the moment, is Eugene's performance through this whole thing. Because when we get to that tense moment, and when we get to the 3, 2, 1 countdown, I mean, you're looking around, there's no one else there. We just see a giant line of people. And then, bam! Everybody in the line just blows out. Negan blows out his head, all of the saviors, everyone, all those weapon damage, completely lost, weapons useless, people hurt, their ability to fight heavily compromised. That was a shout out loud moment. And then, of course, really opens the doors for Rick and the gang to just do a full charge and start to finish off the saviors. Well, for the most part, not entirely, which I thought was also really good. But we even have, again, Negan ready to blow out Father Gabriel's head. His hand wounded. He can't even get revenge against Eugene, who he knows is the one behind it. Because then we have Dwight, who's all tied up, going and knocking him over and pushing away before the rest of Rick's gang comes up. So, I mean, it was beautifully well done. And again, it was sold because of Eugene's performance. Because we have bought since last episode, I did, that he had completely turned, was completely over on the saviors. And even the opening sequence, as he walks in and he tells Negan, you know, we've got the bullets and they're all done. He looks like he's entered into Crazy Town. He looks like he is completely switched over. Performance, again, all perfectly done. Really thought that he had turned. Even how he's saying, he's like, this is something I must do. And does the recommendation. That was the best thing. His recommendation, which we see in that first scene of like, oh my God. Line them all up, max them out, one single shot, just make it horrible and quick and done and wipe them all out. Ends up being what gets the saviors, because then they're all there. They all shoot at the same time. If it was out of sequence and one blew, other people wouldn't fire their weapon. They would still have their combat abilities with them. They'd be able to fight better. They'd be able to grab. They'd be able to use their, the hatchets and everything else better. Now, with half of a hand blown off, no, that's going to work, assuming you're not pulling shrapnel out of your body, which we could see several of those saviors were. So, from Eugene's whole setup, I mean, again, even his confrontation with Father Gabriel, who jumped out of the car to try and warn everyone. He's blind, he wasn't going to get far, but it's sold, and for Gabriel, that was a big thing. So all these little elements made that one final scene just work so perfectly. The tension was built, we were worried, it looked horrible, and we totally did not expect Eugene to actually have planned to betray Negan. It was just marvelously set up, and like I said, a definitely stand out and clap and yell and scream at the TV set moment. But of course, the other real big sequence, the long-awaited bit, was the final fight between Rick and Negan. And I have mixed feelings about that. I mean, overall, it accomplished, what it was meant to do. But even from the very opening, with the flashback in the scene of Rick and young Carl taking their little walk, and all I'm thinking is, taking a walk in the apocalypse. There's been this reliance, this whole back half of the season, on the memory of Carl, that intensity of Carl, which sometimes has worked and sometimes, honestly, I felt has been overplayed. This is a contracted time period, so it's only been a couple of days. It hasn't been that long. Of course, it should still be strong in everybody's memories and feelings and hearts and all of that. But from a weekly episode standpoint, it just seems we're constantly retreading that, oh, what Carl would have wanted. So there was a certain sappiness, I think, going into the episode. But when we have that final confrontation between Rick and Negan, and honestly, Negan kind of flattens Rick out much quicker than I thought. I thought we'd at least have sort of a dragged out little battle here. But it was pretty much a grab, a knock, and Negan kicks him in the stomach, and then Rick's kind of out. Negan did have the best line in this. I'm bigger, I'm badder, and I got a bat. It kind of describes, the winner on most fights there. So that was nice. But then we have Rick falling into using Carl. And that's what got me, because it seems he's down, and so this is a reason that if he was standing up, he may not have been using this memory of Carl. We can get past this. So that felt a little weak there. But then when he asks for his 10 seconds and Negan gives it to him and he suckers him in, you see on Negan's face, he's like, he almost wants to believe. He wants to put it down. He's getting there. That message is coming across. And then Rick just cuts open his throat. See, Negan, and again, Negan had the perfect point, which is why he's such a great antagonist, because he has so many correct points, even though he's the villain. And he is. But it's a blurred line, and that's what makes it interesting. But that final bit when he's like, you didn't learn, Carl didn't teach you anything. You're still the same, you know, as he's going out. And it's true. That is a complete betrayal. He used Carl, just like he used the feint in the bar that he was going to take the people in before he turned and hatcheted one in the back. Morgan brought that up perfectly, and I think that is a big point, the fact of how much they have lost, that they are not this people that they were, that they are worse in many ways, because old Rick wouldn't have done that. He wouldn't have promised forgiveness and then stabbed people in the back. He wouldn't have used Carl's memory to get Negan to drop his guard just to slice open his throat. He wouldn't betray that idea of what Carl was trying to pass on. So Morgan's whole statement, and again, his character, I think they did a perfect job of transitioning him throughout this episode. But he was right on the money there. So there was a sense of betrayal. And when he turns around and says, go save him, all I'm thinking is, you can do that? Did you purposely cut him not so deep? Did you just want to stop him? I mean, that's a lot of control. It's a lot of depth. You can see he had the conflict there. Understandable Maggie losing it. No, you have to be able to kill him. But again, from the concept of where you're going, that you are getting to that moment, that vision of where Carl wanted things. They got to that point. I didn't necessarily like the path that they went. I didn't like Rick, again, constantly devolving into that dark side only so that he could have a bigger return back. The nice thing, though, I have to say, for Makoto of wrapping up that scene, using the same speech that they gave the Kingdom and the Hilltop before their initial attack, almost verbatim, that exact speech about this world, this is what you earned, and if you want to be fair and live in what's right, then you're welcome, and if you betray that, then you will pay the price. Almost verbatim, the exact speech that he gave before for a victory speech and encouragement is now a way to wrap up the war to show that there is peace. So that was a really nice balance that I did like. So there's a lot of stuff I thought that was handled super well in that scene, and some stuff that really just irked me from a character point. I'm glad that Alton, our ex-savior, is really going to be helping out Hilltop, that Maggie finally accepted him in. I mean, it was a kind of a nice little work for his character arc in this season, to Maggie giving this speech in the beginning as, you may be here, but you're not one of us, to then him using that exact line to Tara when he's saying, look, I'm going with you, and then telling the guys, are you coming? Because I'm with her, even though she's not with us. He's constantly been putting himself in that position to, this is where I want to be. So at the end, where he says, hey, I've been reading that book, The Key to a Future, I can build stuff, I want to be part of that. Maggie really does have to open up. He has really proven himself on multiple levels. So I like that element of his character moving, and it's one of those that shows that for Maggie there might be some level of forgiveness, obviously just some level of forgiveness, available to some saviors, chosen few. And speaking of Maggie and forgiveness, we had that odd last scene. The Dark Triumvirate meeting between her, Jesus, and Daryl about, yes, we're going to move to the future, but Rick done us wrong, and we're going to show him, we're going to bide our time. It's... I don't know. I mean, I understand where she's coming from. Obviously, the loss of Glenn and killing Negan was the whole point of all of this, and her sort of feeling betrayed. You know, part of it is kind of like, look, you just go shoot the guy. I mean, it's not like Rick's going to kill you, or maybe during transport he could have gotten wounded or lost, or, I mean, I get her frustration, but this sort of like dark underpinning planning, we're going to be in the backgrounds and then we're going to show him one day, just seems unnecessarily dark. And then the people with him, I mean, okay, Daryl, yeah, I get that you can be a hard ass and you might have your conflicts with Rick, but you just forgave Dwight. The whole idea of forgiveness, I mean, you can't be upset necessarily at Rick forgiving Negan if you just forgave Dwight, who you would promise to kill, who would basically got on his knees and said, I am ready for it. I am glad they let him go. I love that he seemed to go back to Sherry's house and found a note. I'm guessing honeymoon might be where they went and had their honeymoon. That's sort of the idea I got. So Daryl being so upset about that kind of strikes me as odd. And Jesus, why is Jesus there and so upset? He was the one just telling Morgan about maybe there's a different way to kill. I love that too. This ends for the dead, and this ends for the living. It's nice. It's a good, simple way of producing things. So, you know, there's this dark foreboding for the future as now we've got this evil triumvirate and they're going to be planning in the darkness to betray and backstab. And, one, we don't want any of that happening. But two, it's like, I don't know. I don't even get the main motivation for you. Unless, like, two of those people are just planning to spy on Maggie's plans. I don't know. I like how they worked out Morgan's story through this. Again, all of the haunting idea, the fact that he's being haunted by red-haired Mao. He's killing the guy. Wow, man, you can just do that. You don't think you can kill your way out of caring for people. I mean, again, this is Morgan's psyche speaking to him, and as he's slowly losing it, they set up his departure from the show, I think, really well. They continued that sort of descent that he's falling into as he has that opening speech with Rick there about that we are not who we were, that we are worse than the people that we were. They followed that all, I think, really well through this season. I think they wrapped up kind of his Walking Dead storyline nicely. That he's already kind of walked away, that he just needs to finish this fight. And then as he does so, it's just, I'm going to be fine. And I need to be on my own. And they've set that up, I think, really well so that by next season we can just hear, hey, Morgan disappeared, it makes sense, you know, it all works really well. So I love the fact that, I loved how they've traced sort of Morgan's, how they allowed his journey throughout the season to be wrapped up and to have it make sense of why he would thus then leave this group. All right, just a couple of small things here. One, I enjoyed that there was a little moment between Sadiq and Rick. That Rick wanted to hear about what happened to Carl, and Sadiq being honest and open about it. I like that. That's the one thing about his character is he doesn't lie. He's always been very straightforward with everything and how he tells the story, and the fact that Carl died honoring a woman that he's never met. I mean, even Rick for a moment, he did the heart. Oh, that just touched my heart. Just instinctively, so I just love the fact that they kind of had that little encounter. You can see that the chemistry, the tension between them, obviously very palpable. But that he was willing to listen to Sadiq. Sadiq was able to tell him, and Rick can understand what that was. I think it really sort of fermented a lot of Carl's ideas that will eventually, by the end of the episode, work themselves out. Jerry is still the man. Love that opening scene. We ain't losing shit. We're not losing shit. Just keep repeating that no matter what Ezekiel was saying. That optimism is infectious, and you can see it and feel it. Very convenient timing for the Ciders to show up. That was nice. I was wondering if they had set up bombs, trip lines or something like that. I wasn't sure the way that Taro was saying, just wait a moment. You know, obviously it's to get a little closer. But when we saw the explosions first, I was like, trip mines? Buried explosives? But obviously the surprise on Tara's face said that wasn't the case. But good time for the Ciders to show up. It's a now larger group. And, well, it was a small contribution. It protected Hilltop. And that's really what was needed. And Rosita and Eugene seem to have sorted their stuff out. After a punch to the face. But I think even Eugene agreed. For a vomit, especially, God, sardine, garlic, mac and cheese vomit, yeah, that deserves a punch in the face. And finally, Negan will not be murdered. He will be stuck in prison for the rest of his life. Well, I guess we'll end up seeing how that actually lays out. But Again, I thought that was a decent way of wrapping things up, because you can't really let him loose into the community. He does need to sort of serve as an example. So I get that. It's going to take time. That's going to take resources, but a better way to show that there is a possible future tomorrow, that every crime does not create a death penalty, that there is a better way to move forward. So... and it's going to make Negan very unhappy. And we'll see a little bit more of Jeffrey Dean Morgan on the show, which I think will be a bit of a treat. So, that's it. That's the end of the war. Everything was all pretty much wrapped up. Say, Morgan has given his reason to give his leave, taking over Jadis's place, whose real name is Anne. That's good to know. And then, of course, we'll be moving on as we cover up Fear the Walking Dead, which premiered immediately after this. And of course, we will have a review coming up, well, right after this. So I hope you check that out. Thank you so much for joining me for this whole season of The Walking Dead. Great way to sort of wrap up our giant war. A little bit of action, a little bit of fun, and then a whole lot of tying up ends. That's the only one downside of the finale episode, is it seems like a whole lot of it is just setting things up to wrap up a new chapter, which is what we're expecting next season. New showrunner, Scott Gimple isn't here anymore, so should be a whole new feel to the show, and we'll see where they will go with that. So, that's it for now. Thanks again for joining me. If you enjoyed this review, please go ahead and hit that like button. Thoughts, ideas, and comments, you know where to put them? Down in the section below. You can always catch me on Twitter and Instagram. I am at Darren Jakes. And if you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. It's the end of Walking Dead, sure, but Fear the Walking Dead has just started, and it's pretty good. You can be a subscriber if you're not by clicking this button right here, and we'll throw up a review for Fear the Walking Dead right here, as well as another random review you can check out right there. Anyway, that's going to be it for me. I'm D, and I'm out of here. Catch you guys next time. Bye-bye.